Morning, Northampton, in this sunny day today. We've got some sunshine with us today, Albert. That's fantastic. Look, we're just a group of Christians from different churches within the town and the county, and so, you know, we don't look at ourselves in a religious sense, quote unquote. We're believers in Christ and what He says and what He's done and what He did. And so we're here. We've got a free table there with plenty of free books on it if you want them. If you've got any questions, come up to any of the guys or the females, and we will answer your questions. We don't know everything, but we know enough. And if you need prayer for anything, whatever it is, I need prayer every day of my life. If you need prayer for anything, come up to one of us and we'll spend time with you and pray for you. So we're just here for a few minutes to talk about good news and the truth. Can you hear me all right, Graham? And I've just put up on the board here, Christ on the cross with the two criminals, what He did on that day, and plus an empty tomb. He's the only person in history to have been crucified, to be killed, to in a sense go into the grave, but to actually leave an empty tomb. The only one. And that should help you ask questions. You want to seek answers about that. He is the only one. And the reason I say, plus that empty tomb equals love. Because there is no other incidents in history of mankind that shows love like that on the board. None. And we try to do it. We try to share with others and this, that, and the other. And the greatest commandment is to love your neighbour as yourself. But no one did what Christ did on the cross. And you go research Him. Don't take my words. Go and look for yourself while you're living, while you have the time, and compare Him and look at other religious leaders, if you like, or other leaders in the world, and you'll say there is no one like Him. No one to touch Him. If I can. Approximately, I'm going to read this from the Bible, approximately 750 years before Christ was born, an unknown and simple herdsman and harvester sycamore figs from the south hears God telling him to go to the northern king. Imagine that. This guy is just a herdsman. And he hears God speak to his heart and say, go to and speak to this king in the north. So off he goes, telling him to go to the northern king, Jeroboam II, though he is betraying God. How about that? That takes guts. You're no one, and you're asked to go to the king and tell him that he's doing wrong things. He's betraying God. The prophet's name was Amos, and you can read him in the Old Testament. It was a time of great prosperity, but instead of this benefiting everyone, the increase in resources in that land were only going to the small elite class, while many were suffering in poverty. That's in the book of Amos. Does that remind you of something? Is that familiar to you in 2024? A lot of we still have poverty in this world. Why? We've got enough produce. We've got enough money. Why? And it's no different. That was nearly 3,000 years ago. And have we moved on and changed this world? Not compared to that. And here's what he was asked to say. You can read this for yourself. Don't take my words. Thus he showed me, behold, the Lord stood on a wall made with a plumb line in his hand, and with a plumb line in his hand. And the Lord said to me, Amos, what do you see? And I said, a plumb line. And then the Lord said, behold, I am setting a plumb line in the midst of my people, Israel. I will not pass them by anymore. How about that? Now, I don't know whether you know what a plumb line is. You know, I'm still working as a builder, a small builder, and I use plumb lines from time to time. And here's a plumb line. This is a plumb line, a basic plumb line. It's got an old iron nail in the bottom of it. But that is a plumb line, and hand in hand with gravity, it will give me a straight line. And I could pretty much guarantee every one of these buildings in Abingdon Street, at some point, a builder would have been using a plumb line to get a true straight line. Not a horizontal level, but a plumb line. And that would give us a true straight line. So here, God is speaking to Amos and saying he's going to set amongst Israel a plumb line. Now, 750 years later, along comes Jesus Christ, born of Mary. From the seed of Mary, not by the seed of man, from the seed of Mary, and by God, he was born in the womb and started his life. So when I look at that plumb line, that represents righteousness and truth, a straight line. Now, if I put my life up against that plumb line, you would see how crooked my life has been in the past. If I put that plumb line up against the wall in any of these buildings, I could see how true and straight it was. And they say that Jesus was also called a plumb line. So when I show you that plumb line, when I show you the moral law, which was also a kind of plumb line, you've seen that before. It's called the 10 Commandments, the basic 10. Thou shalt not have no other gods. Thou shalt not make unto the earth graven image. All right, thou shalt not murder, etc., etc. You've heard of them probably. That's like a plumb line. So I want to ask you a question today, and I'm not judging you, because when I put myself up against that plumb line, I'm not too good. That's the truth. My past is not too good at all. So let me ask you a question. Do you think you're a good person? If you compared yourself to the righteous plumb line, are you a good person? Let me ask you some questions. You judge yourself. I'm not judging you. I have a judge. He will judge me if I die tomorrow. He's my judge. I'm not judging you. You judge yourself when you go home. Think about this today. How many lies have you told in your life? 10, 20, 30, 10,000? Too many you can't remember? What do we call someone who tells lies? We call them a liar. Have you ever taken anything that did not belong to you? When I was a schoolboy, I used to go past this sweet shop, confectionery shop, near my house, and I used to go in there and fill my pockets up with chocolates. I didn't pay for them, and then I'd go to school and share them out with my friends. I was thieving on the way to school. And then I got stopped by the owner one day, eventually, and of course my conscience got hold of me, and I thought, I'm doing, he told me, that's not right. And my conscience said I must be doing something wrong. I was thieving sweets. I was thieving. That's just the beginning. And I can tell you that my debt to God, my list of debt to God that was nailed to that cross is probably much longer and bigger than yours. But let me carry on. So have you ever taken anything that didn't belong to you? What do we call somebody who takes things that doesn't belong to them? We call them a thief. Let me ask you another. Have you ever lusted after another person? I'll ask the men. I know it applies to females as well, especially today. Pornography all over the place. Have you ever lusted after another person? Jesus took it further and he said, if you as much as lust after another, you have committed adultery in your heart. There's another one of those moral laws, that plumb line. Let me ask you one more. Have you ever taken God's name in vain? You're doing some DIY at home. You got a hammer and a nail, you miss the nail and hit your thumb, out comes that curse word. Why is it that we curse the most perfect man that's ever walked on this earth? There's plenty of evidence for Christ, I won't go into that. Would you use your mother's name as a curse word anytime? Of course not. Because you love your mother. You love your mother and you wouldn't do that to your mother. But we curse him who gave us every breath we've got. We curse him who put those clouds up there full of water to replenish the earth. We curse him that gave us life. And he says to us, in love and justice, they shall not go unpunished, those who take my name in vain. So we're up against that plumb line again. And in the Bible it says that the law, the plumb line, therefore the law was our tutor. These commandments, these righteous commandments for our soul, therefore the law was our tutor to bring us to Christ, that we might be justified by faith. But after faith has come, we are no longer under a tutor. Here's what Jesus said, who is called a plumb line in a sense, who is the righteous one, the only one that's ever walked this earth. He says, therefore, whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him to a wise man who built his house on the rock. Here he's talking about building again. And the rain descended, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. But everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain descended, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. That's what Jesus said. He also says, learn from me. Learn from me. Build your house on the right foundation. What do? We run out into the world as soon as we're young teens, and we want to go and do things our way. Frank Sinatra was correct, and that famous song, I'll Do It My Way. People resonated with that, because most people do it their way. And Christ says, come and learn from me. He says, what does it benefit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? And I can tell you, my neighbors, I'm saying this to you, I've lived in this town 33 years, and I love you as my neighbors. I know you don't know me. But I'm saying to you, I can tell you the most important, well, on your last day, the most important thing that you will be thinking about is your soul, yourself. Where am I going? What's going to happen to me? If there is a God, will he be generous to me? Well, he was generous to us. And I'll come back to the board. This is God the Son in the flesh, who showed his love in sacrifice, in shedding his own blood for us. If we would as much as believe in him and turn to him, then our debt would be nailed to that cross. Now, I'm going to finish. And I just want to ask you this question. You think about this today, this week. When Paul wrote to the Corinthians, Apostle Paul, who himself stood by and held the coats of those who were killing Christians, but he met Christ. And here's what Paul wrote to the Corinthians. He said, "For who makes you differ from another? And what do you have that you did not receive?" I'll ask that question again. Ask yourself this weekend, today, what did you have that you did not receive? I've been thinking about that for quite a while, and I can't come up with anything. In my life, I can't come up with anything that I had that it was because of me and I did not receive it. Think about that as we're babies in the womb. What do we bring into this world that we brought ourselves? So think about that. I'm going to finish here, and we have 3 books on the table. There's a wonderful book, which is John's Gospel. It's a special book in the respect that it's a special gospel. John was one of the apostles, and he lived with Jesus, he touched Jesus, he watched Jesus, he saw everything that went on, and then he wrote about it. Plus all the other apostles were the same, plus at least 500 plus other people saw him alive again after being crucified. Plus there were politicians and historians who wrote about Jesus Christ. He's real. I hope you think about this, Northampton, and make him real in your life. He's abundant in his forgiveness. There's nothing you've done that he won't forgive. He just wants you to turn to him. And he says, if you turn to me, I will turn to you. So I'll leave that with you. Here's a wonderful book. It's on the table there, John's Gospel. Take it, it's free. Thanks for listening.